Flavia Stefani Resende is a Brazilian writer based in San Francisco, California. She is the co-founder of Confeitaria and loves books and her cat more than anything in the world. She also likes her husband. Confeitaria is an independent literary website, small press, and, starting next year, a monthly magazine based in Sao Paulo. It is aimed at Brazilian readers initially, so most of the pieces are written in Brazilian Portuguese. It is the product of the imagination of two best friends, Fabian Secchi and Flavia Stefani Resende, who got together in 2012 and decided to create a space where up-and-coming Brazilian artists could publish their work, and in doing that, they created a new community of artists in one of South America's busiest and most vibrant cities. They have published over 70 artists and writers on their website and have published 2 books to date, a collection of flash fiction and a book of poems and photography. They also put out a fanzine last semester and have 4 new books scheduled for 2016, Flavia's first novel among them. Confeitaria publishes fiction, non-fiction, poetry, illustrations, and cartoons. Everything, pretty much. Everything that they love. They are very excited about the future. Please welcome Flavia.
Making sure there's no lipstick. Oh my, it happens a lot. Thank you so much, Vero, for having me. Alright, so I picked up a few things here and there. I'm going to read from this first book that we put out. It's called Amor, Short Stories. And the task was we had 40 people write flash fiction, right? So it was pretty much 1 page per person, and then someone else illustrated that. And it's all new work, you know, I mean, graphic work and flash fiction. So, okay, I'm gonna read from this one. So, the first one is called Astolfo de Record de Campos. So, let me get this out of the way. Okay. It was when he got knocked out that Astolfo fell in love with boxing. He had flung his chin with all his strength against the fist of the opponent and was now stretched on the floor of the ring. 10. The face purple-blue disfigured, the ribcage in pieces nested a sprinting heart. 9. And aren't those the sad symptoms of love? 8. With just one well-fitting punch, he was connected to every boxer who came before him. 7. Rock Marciano, Joe Louis, Jack Dempsey, Muhammad Ali. 6. Fist by fist, the broken jaw was like a handshake through the history of sport. 5. With the one eye left open, he watched the crowd. 4. The strange silence, the flash from the photographers, a pool of blood, saliva and vomit had framed his head. 3. He was in love. 2. He was dead. That's one. Alright, so, let's see. God, there's so many. I'm not going to read all of them, but okay. This one, yeah. So, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, so obviously it's amoralized, it's a flash fiction about love, but it could be any kind of love, obviously. So somebody wrote a love poem to their dog, and this journalist wrote about her father, her late father. It's called My Love. I have avoided my father's presence my whole life. I was embarrassed by his sweetness, his endearment, swipshy. There was needness in his eyes, so much of it. No, in the bags right beneath them. We like to say he didn't have a smile. He enjoyed repeating stories all over again. I only understood afterwards that those who repeat don't trust. That's why the repetition. One day he told me to write, that I could even get paid for it, he said. I told him I wanted to wear ripped socks and draw girls and clothes. I joined a sewing class and designed poorly basted shirts, crooked, short, and with tiny collars. He wore all of them. He was buried with the bubblegum green one. Do you want your father to go to the bar wearing bubblegum green? He would joke. The fabric filled with lint from usage, he used it all over again. Because of him, I have learned to really press down the trace, any trace, to indicate repetition. Is this one? Let's see. Oh, This one is by a poet who was published in this book and also in our poetry book. Her name is Ana Guadalupe. The picture in which you eat noodles. In the picture, you eat noodles in Japan and your fine and weak hair, touched by the sun, makes me want to cry. I imagine you hunchback in the photography, things that are in me and I would very much like, with no compromise of pressure, to find in you. When you ring the doorbell, I hope in vain to open the door to that picture of you eating noodles in Japan. This one. So now I'm going to read from the book of poetry that we put out last year. So this young poet, Ana Guadalupe, she wrote 20 poems for the book, and a photographer named Camilla Stevenson took pictures. So they didn't speak before, so they took pictures separately and then we put them together. We just gave them some prompts. And one poem is called, it's a very short poem, called Moving Truck. Moving to a different city is still the most efficient way to pretend or to be a better person. Fix your CV and your posture. Nobody around to reveal that before you didn't always feel so good. Okay. I really like this one. The second one is called For Love I Refuse Your Inheritance. I realize that maybe it's love like they say, the most sincere kind, that I would even avoid when the hypothesis of your death hits me, the glimpse of the storm carrying your body down the street, the strong scenes in the mobile ICU arriving late by 1 second, on my way back from work the hindmost text message. Before, I celebrated the image of other people's accidents, the silent inheritance in accessories, books, bath towels, jewelry, a computer, I admit, which was very interesting. Today, every asset seems small and futile. Today I hope otherwise, that my love sucks all my longevity, and if needed, use it with a new somebody, my objects. Okay. Alright, so Brazil is going through a very delicate political time now. It has always, but even more so now. So there has been a lot of protests, people take it to the streets, and there's always people who think that this is not the right way to protest. My way to protest is a way. So I guess this writer was addressing that. Anyway, this we published on the website. It's called Missing. My mother was born in 1958. She voted for Lula in 1989. Lula was a president for many years. She died in 1992. I spent a good chunk of my life trying to figure out what kind of person she was. Think of the idea you had of your mother at 10 years old, the age I was when she died, and think of the idea you have of her today. Two very different people, I'm sure, trying to figure out what my mom's dreams were, her wishes, her flaws, her ambitions. I still try, of course. Today, however, I tend to dedicate more time to another type of exercise, very silly, I admit. Imagine what kind of person my mother would be today if a car running the wrong way hadn't taken her life. But there are days, hadn't taken her from me. It's not that I think about it every day, all the time, but there are days it's the only thing I can think of. I think if I would show her the new Dania Stephens record I just downloaded, if I would tell her that I have been very insecure with my appearance, my boobs especially, if she would like the cakes and pastries I make, if she would have taught me how to make chocolate eclair, if she would have voted for Dilma, or if, like me, she would have spoiled the ballot in English. And obviously there are no answers for any of that. They're just silly and meaningless fables. But sometimes, silly as they are, they help me a bit. Like today, for instance. I'm not sure what kind of person my mother was, and I know very well that it's no use to think about the kind of person she would have been. But so what if it's no use? Because one thing I'm absolutely sure of is my mother was not a woman who would, under any circumstances, mourn Brazil. She would never threaten to move to Miami. She would never advocate an impeachment. She would never name-call the Northeasterns. She wouldn't want separatism. She wouldn't think evil and corruption won over the good men, the very good men. Few times have I missed my mom as I do today. So, okay, now to close off, I am going to read, okay, here. I'm going to share a chapter of my novel. I am trying to be brave and read this out loud. Okay, so I'm writing a book, and all you have to know to understand this passage is that it's about a 25-year-old woman in New York. And she has this whole secret life online. She's an artist on the internet. She has a blog that is famous, just like a Banksy of Instagram. But nobody knows who she is because her work is very provocative and her bosses would fire her, she thinks. So, and she has all that, and she's also dating her boss, but he doesn't know he's dating her. He knows he has a girlfriend online, but he has no idea it's this woman who works for him, right? So I wrote this, and she's going to finally work up the courage to go to his apartment and tell him who she is. All right. The walls were brighter than I thought they would be. Every time I walked past 19th Street and looked at the brick building, I imagined that the inside would be dusty and fiery. In a red and brown hues like a New York version of the Grand Canyon. But that was one of many things I had been wrong about recently. The apartment was the opposite of that. Slick, minimalist, almost surgically clean. The kind of place where you feel uncomfortable sneezing. The kind of place where you feel very uncomfortable making a confession and owing up to a year of lying. Nice couch, I pointed at the gigantic piece of foam resembling a bean. Thanks, Roger said. Should we sit? Sure. I had been wrong about the artwork too. I would like to think that all those emails we had exchanged on the subject of art would have sparked something dark and messy in him, which would eventually be reflected on his taste, but the black and white photo of the Brooklyn Bridge hanging on the wall in front of me told a different story, out of an image bank nonetheless. Something to drink? He asked a bit too politely. I might have tea. His gray sweatpants did a fantastic job of tracing the curves of his butt, and the green wool sweater made his hazel eyes pop. His dark hair was parted to the side. He wore shoes in the house, brown slippers. 9 in the morning on Saturday, and the man already looked like he could conquer the world. How was that possible? Show up at my studio anytime before noon and I will shoot you in the face. Tea would be great, I said. I never drank tea. For a very long time in my life, I thought that every choice I made sent a message outward, my beverage choices included. I had been, after all, an art director most of my working years. I was paid to make people believe that the things they bought defined them, that they were customers first and foremost. The way I saw it, tea drinkers were in search of balance. They enjoyed mild flavors, so I forced myself in the other direction. Black coffee, no sugar, absolutely no cream. That morning, though, I opted for tea. Do you take it with sugar? He yelled from his kitchen, an entirely separate room. Sure. Creamer? It's fat-free, he asked in a light tone, as if that were the decisive factor. Perfect. The snow on my rain boots had started to melt. I had handed him my raincoat on the way in, but he hadn't said anything about the shoes, so I kept them on. Now there was a puddle of New York brown snow on this expensive white carpet beneath my feet. I suffered from no grandiose delusions that I knew of, but sometimes it felt like the universe was playing a trick on me. A snowstorm in the last week of April on the same day that I had decided to come clean? What else could that be if not a message? I took one shoe off and then the other. My socks were soaking wet, so I took them off too. He walked into the living room holding a white mud porcelain. A thin strip of steam evaporated from the hot liquid. He paused when he saw my feet. I didn't want to ruin your carpet, I said. No, it's good, thank you, he said. He handed me the mud. With his 2 fingers, he picked up my books and placed them near the door. He walked back to the middle of the room and sat in the brown leather chair on my right. So, you wanted to talk? He asked. My heart was beating up at my mouth. Right, I said. Is this about Marjorie? Marjorie Fisher was one of the art directors in our team. Last quarter, word got out that somebody in the creative department would be promoted to senior art director with a private office and a $20K pay increase. The most likely candidates were she and I, which instantly turned her into Satan's special correspondent. She badmouthed me every chance she got and stole 3 of my ideas. And because this is exactly the kind of behavior that advertising executives encourage, she got the promotion. Roger had sent out the congratulatory email to the whole agency the previous evening. That's not why I'm here, I said. It wasn't my call, Sylvia. No worries, Roger, it's good. Also, let's face it, she worked hard. We all worked hard. I began to defend myself, but stopped mid-sentence. I couldn't care less about the promotion. Marjorie could burn that place to the ground for all I cared. I hugged one of the small bean pillows. Remember when we first met? I asked him. Not really, he said. I mean, we met at work, but I don't remember specifically when. Summer of 2005, I said. You were wearing that Star Trek t-shirt. Probably, I had many. Track yourself before you wreck yourself, remember? Oh, that one, I remember. So stupid, I said. He didn't say anything. But then I saw you at the award show last year, and the strangest thing had happened. You looked nothing like you. It was like you had been abducted, you know? I mean, not literally, of course. Well, I'm not sure, actually. Have you ever been abducted? I'm sorry, what's your point, he asked. A great pigeon landed on his apartment window, and at that moment, I wanted to switch lives of it badly. I noticed that Roger didn't have any curtains or blinds. If he walked around naked, everybody would see him. He didn't strike me as somebody who walked around naked, though. Did he change clothes in the bathroom? Sylvia, he asked. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I couldn't tell him the truth. I had gone there to do it. I needed to vomit the truth on his carpet like a cat, but my mouth couldn't form the right words. Do you have a piece of paper? I asked. Listen, why don't we talk on Monday, he offered. I scanned the room for a notepad and noticed the newspaper under my bag. Here, I'll use this, I said. I picked up a marker from the side pocket of my bag. Holding the cap with my teeth, I wrote my signature phrase on the front page of the New York Times, the sentence I had used to sign off each of the thousands of anonymous emails I had sent him since last year. Sent from the Women's Correctional Facility. I folded the newspaper and handed it to him. For today and tonight, I just wanted to maybe show the books one last time. And they're all in Portuguese, so they are not for sale unless you want to look at something you don't understand for many hours. And this is the fanzine we put out last year. All right, thank you.